Good morning. My name is Steve. I'm one of the pastors here, and it is my extreme honor to introduce our guest speaker for today. We realize that we've just started the sermon series in Genesis a few weeks ago, but once we heard that Ahmad was available to come, we thought this is such a valuable opportunity to hear from a dear brother in Christ. Ahmad comes from British Columbia, where him and his family live, his wife Dina and their two daughters. Ahmad's claim to fame is that he is part of the Canadian Paralympic team for goalball for visually impaired individuals. And so you travel the world, I understand, to represent Canada.
I have.
Yeah, how cool is that? We have an Olympic athlete here in front of us. Yeah, wonderful. But Ahmad is the executive director of House of Omeed in BC, which is a ministry which you will hear more about, but it serves new Canadians and invites them into transforming a relationship with Jesus. But on top of that, you're also involved through House of Omeed in work in the Middle East, working directly with the persecuted church, because you've experienced some of that firsthand as well. One individual that you may be interested to know is that Ahmad is partnered with our dear friend and missionary Kate. And so if you know of her, there's some contact there as well in the Middle East. My friends, what you're about to hear today has been refined, a message that's been refined over years of not only connecting with the persecuted church, but also experiencing it firsthand. And so this is a real treat for us as a church congregation to be able to allow the Spirit to move through Ahmad and into our own lives. So I'd like to pray right now that God would just transform us as he uses Ahmad to open up the Word and also to challenge us. Would you join me in prayer? Father, thank you for this dear friend and brother, Ahmad. Thank you for his deep love for you, for his family, and for the ministry that you've brought him into. And now, oh God, we ask that you would do a work in our hearts and lives. We pray that we would not remain the same and that you would do something new in us, equip us for maybe what we're experiencing right now or maybe something that we'll experience in years to come. I pray, God, that you would use these next few minutes together for the advancement of your kingdom and that your name would be glorified. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Hello, Grant Memorial. So good to be with you in the month of May. Last time I was here, it was in January. It was minus 35. But to put this in context for you, I am from Iran. I was born blind in a Muslim family in southern Iran, where in the summer, the temperature is plus 50. So minus that by what, 85 degrees Celsius. And so since then, if a church emails me from Winnipeg between November and February, not even answering. The answer is hard no. But I'll be happy to come anytime except that time. So it's for you, Pastor Steve, for the future reference. As I mentioned, I was born blind in a Muslim family, and God gave me spiritual sight when I was 20 and I was a refugee in Turkey. I don't have time to get into a detail of my story, but if you want to know more about my biography and this crazy blind man who snuck a bike for a few months out of house and biked to school through a highway and then got caught by his math teacher one day, pick up one of my books. It's somewhere in the back and read it, and I explain my life there. But me and my wife were missionaries with our denomination, Baptist General Conference of Canada, and we founded a ministry called House of Omeed. Omeed stands for hope in our language, and we operate on three main missions. And our missions are taken from Acts chapter 1, verse 8, where Jesus says, when the Holy Spirits come at you, you will take the gospel to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the rest of the earth. And we call our threefold missions here, near, and far. In our here mission, we share the gospel through newcomers and refugees to Canada, mostly from Middle East, through our services. We operate a cultural diverse food bank, which serves currently 300 families. And we do paperwork ministry. We help people to settle in Canada. We make resume. We find them a job. We find them furniture. We help them rent a house. Anything that a newcomer needs. We do ESL classes. But through it all, we share the gospel with them. Everybody that works at House of Omeed is a born-again Christian who's trained to share the gospel with these people. And, this is really important. It takes a long time to share the gospel with Muslims, for them to become to Christ. But it is happening. We baptized 30 of our clients last year. This was 30 Muslims who gave their heart to Jesus, and that's very important. I was a needy refugee, and when I accepted the Lord, it was the day I accepted the Lord. You read in my book, I was trying to commit suicide. I was depressed. I had no hope. And if somebody didn't have a courage to share the gospel with me, I wouldn't be standing today, a changed man in front of you. I would have been dead. Our second mission is helping churches across Canada to realize that Canada will only get more people, whether we like it or not. People are coming to our doorsteps, and we want our churches to reach out to, our new neighbors. So we go around and we come to your churches. We do teaching seminars to just give you vision and show you how to do it. We also have wealth of resources that we could provide to you. Our third mission, which is our unspoken mission, we don't talk about it a lot, we don't publicize it a lot, and that is our secret mission, which is we work with the underground church movement inside Iran. We're connected to series of these underground churches through online means throughout the year. We mentor them, we teach them, we train them, we resource them. We also air a weekly satellite TV program that they could watch from safety of their homes. And then we also have a call center. When non-believers watch our program, they call us and they ask questions, or if they need a Bible, we get them a Bible. We send Bibles within Iran and distribute them through our underground church leaders. We also bring our leaders, we traditionally brought them out of Iran once a year. They come as a tourist. We take them to an unknown location and we train them through the pastors that we take from Canada and to be the teachers, because it's illegal to be a Christian in Iran, so they come as a tourist. We take trained pastors and they are the teachers, and we train them that way and we send them home so they can train others. And we have realized that the church is growing so fast in Iran. There are more Iranians accepted the Lord in the last 15 years than the entire 1,500 years of Islam history. Operation World, which is a very reliable source for 1040 window countries, have let out the report that the Iranian church is the fastest growing church in the world. And I am a life testament to that. And God is working in a significant way, and we as a church, we need to help them. They often, persecuted believer, ask me, do the church in Canada know about us? And after today, I could tell them, yeah, I talked about you to Grandma Moore. There's one more church that know about you and prays for you. And I mentioned it takes a lot of time. It takes a long time to share with a Muslim. And I always summarize our ministry this way. And it's a story of me when I was very new to Canada. I came to Canada in 2009. And as Steve mentions, I became, I was an athlete and I was recruited for Team Canada. So I went to a competition in early 2010. My English is very broken at this time. I'm just learning English. So I went with my team. They went back to the hotel, but I decided to stay back in the gym and watch some more games. And, whatever watch means. But, you caught it very well. And so I stayed back for an extra couple of hours, and then I decided to go back to the hotel. So I had to get myself to the shuttle, which was in front of the gym. So I opened up my white cane and started walking towards the entrance. And then as customary, some good Samaritan got up and decided to help me find my way. So he grabbed my hand, and it turns out he was from Newfoundland. So I want you to imagine my poor English and his accent. He was very talkative. So he would go blah, 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 and I have no idea what he's saying. So I would say, what? And he repeats the same thing. I didn't understand anything. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be a short walk. I'm not going to understand him. So I'm going to pretend that I'm understanding. So he goes, blah, 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 and I go, yeah. Went really well. And he goes, blah, 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 and I go, yeah, sure. So he thought I'm understanding him, and it went well until he started saying something. And I said, yeah. And I'm hearing him. He's repeating the same thing for a second time louder. And then I'm like, yeah, sure. And he goes third time much louder. And then this time I'm actually falling down the stairs. I'm like, oh, that's what you mean. Now I get it. And this is ministry to Muslims for you. You know, a lot of time we talk to people, some people for years, and they don't understand what we say. You know, the Bible say they have eyes, but they can't see. They have ears, but they can't hear. And then it's very amazing. They start pretending, because they like to hang out with us. We're nice, right? They start pretending. They're like, yeah, sure. We love Jesus. You know, we believe in the same God. We put all of these lines that they tell us. But, oh boy, I can tell you stories of many Muslims, including myself, who tripped down those stairs. And they're like, oh, that's what we were talking about. And where I'm getting with this is often we think as persecution as something that is not ours. We don't have it. It's for Iran, it's for China, it's for Middle East, is where Christianity is illegal. So I want us to dive into this, and the human rights organization that is connected to United Nations have let out a report that 80% of the religious persecution in the world is directed against Christians. It's a very big number. And this is a secular organization. It's estimated about 70 million people have lost their life because of their faith since the resurrection. But what might shock you is half of that number, 35 million people, lost their life in the past 100 years. It's happening as we speak. There was about 1.3 million Christians in Iraq before the Gulf War. Today is less than 100,000. That is, happening today. There are, every 10 minutes, 2 people are either jailed, tortured, or lose their life because of Jesus, because of their faith. Every 10 minutes. Just during this service, about 10, 20 people. It is happening today. It is happening in Iran, Iraq, Syria, China, Sudan, Somalia. But we can look up and, you will see all of that at the documentary that we're showing today. It's real footage from the persecuted church that we're working with. You will see your secret brothers and sisters in a confidential setting today. But what I want to talk today is about us. Are we persecuted? What does the Bible teaches on that? I want to tell you, we're not going to suffer persecution, violent persecution, as my people in Iran are suffering, but we suffer some form of persecution, like pressure. It is not easy for a young Christian in our public schools today. It is not easy to be a Christian at your job today. Our kids are they looked at fuddy-duddies, outdated. And if you're at work, you want to be a Christian, they want you to conform. Let's dive into this to see what the Bible tells us about this. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 12 says,
"In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted."
So circle this. In fact, whoever, it doesn't say if you're from Iran or if you live in China. It says whoever. If you have decided to live a godly life, which I assume you have because you're sitting in church today, you will suffer some form of persecution. And we have to be informed and ready for that. There are some things that, we shouldn't do. If you're a young person sitting here, there are some bachelor parties that you can't just attend. There are some parties that we can't go to. So what we're going to do today, I want us to look at how to deal with this peer pressure that we, as in Canada, we face. It could be with a non-believer family, it could be at our job, it could be at our society, our neighborhood, it could be in the school, in the college. You're looked down at if you're a college student in a liberal college. So it's hard to be a Christian. So this is a very important message for us, all of us. And I want us to look at two things. One, there are three things that I want us to remember when we suffer this form of pressure, persecution. And there are 6 things that the Bible tells us we need to do. So are you ready? So, again, I want to emphasize that. I want to say that in Canada, at least as of now, we're not persecuted in form of violent persecution, but we are suffering from pressure to conform. And I want us to be clear on that point. So the 3 things that we need to remember. The first one is suffering, pressure, persecution from any form of it will make me like Jesus. Isn't that a goal of every Christian, every person sitting here? Aren't we want to become like Jesus? I'm sure the answer is yes. And suffering, that pressure will make us more like Jesus. Can you, brother, read for us John chapter 15, verses 18 through 20?
If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If you belonged to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. Remember what I told you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also.
So it just tells us, Jesus is saying that, remember, they didn't just hate you, they hated me first. Your God, your Savior is saying this. And he says, you don't belong to there, so you shouldn't even expecting that, they would like it. They would like that you're a Christian. And Jesus also tells us we're the light of the world. Can you go to John chapter 3, verse 19?
This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people loved the darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil.
So I want you to imagine that somebody's sitting in a dark room, very dark room, and you go and turn on a very bright spotlight. They're not going to like it. It's going to bother their eyes in the beginning, right? And this is what you do when you enter a place. On a second thought, you're actually going to reveal what a mess the room is. Because when it's dark, you don't see anything. You don't see the mess. So you're actually turning on a spotlight on people around you, and they're not going to like it. A lot of us struggle with this myth of being perfect. You cannot be perfect. You cannot please everybody. No matter how much you try, I tell you, somebody's not going to like you. It doesn't matter how nice you are. Somebody out of the blue are not going to like you. So just, you don't have to make everybody happy. Make God happy. Just do what is right. The second thing that we need to remember if you're suffering pressure, if you're suffering, they want you to conform. If they tell you you're outdated, this is not right. The second thing you need to remember that opposition, pressure will deepen my faith. For example, if you go to a gym to work out, to be fit, which obviously many of you haven't. Says the blind guy, so don't worry, you're good. If you go to a gym and grab 2 popcorns and try to do this a million times, you're not gonna grow muscles, you're just holding popcorns, right? So what do you do when you go to a gym? You put heavy weight against your muscle, things that you have to push so hard to grow muscles. You know, there are people bragging about how much weight they could do, you know, chest press and this and that. That doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come automatically. You have to go work out. You have to gradually make your muscles stronger. And this is your faith workout. If you want to be strong in your faith, you have to remember you're going to face opposition, and that is going to contribute to your growth, to your how strong your faith is. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 7 says,
These have come so that your proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire,
so it gives
may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed.
Amen. It gives us a very clear example here. It exemplifies gold. You know, when they refine gold, they put it through a very, very hot temperature, very hot fire. And that makes the gold pure. You know, in the beginning, it has a lot of things that they need to get rid of it to make it pure. And then it talks about afterward, after these pressures, it results as that our Lord, you know, being praised. The third thing that you need to remember, it gives me eternal reward. Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 to 12, very clearly says,
Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
So first, realize it says, it's not an if, it's a when. When you are persecuted. If you can remember any time that you were pressured for your faith, that is the when that this is talking about. But if you have been a Christian for a long time and never faced opposition, criticism, pressure, then you have to relook at your faith and how you're living it. Because 2 Timothy 3:12 clearly said, whoever wants to live a godly life. Didn't say John Doe in China or Iran. It just says whoever. But I also want to say that, you know, this is such a promise. In contrary to 2 Timothy 3:12, it says, you know, your reward is great in heaven. But I also want to emphasize that we will be rewarded if we're gentle like Jesus. I know some very bitter, sour-faced, self-righteous Christians that don't portray the gentleness of Jesus. If you keep reading in this chapter, straight after this verse talks about salt losing its saltiness. And it talks about us as Christians, even despite opposition and pressures, we're not supposed to lose our saltiness. That means being gentle. Sorry, I just lost my... So now, I want us to jump to 6 things that the Bible teaches us to do when we are facing opposition to our faith. Number 1, the Bible tells us, don't be surprised. When you're opposed for your faith, a lot of us act surprised. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 12 clearly says,
Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you.
so when people oppose you for your faith, don't act like, oh, why are people are doing this? Or don't think this is a real popular thing to do. The Bible tells us expected. When you're at a secular place, you're at a place that don't like you being a Christian, expect that they will oppose you. Number two, the second thing that the Bible tells us to do is don't be afraid. A lot of us are afraid of people opposing us. People are making fun of us, or they think they might think I'm outdated, or I'm not cool or anything. I'm afraid of being a Christian. And how can you get rid of the fear? Bible clearly tells us, be filled with God's love. Perfect love casts out all fears. 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 13 to 16 says,
Who is going to harm you if you are eager to do good? But even if you should suffer for what is right, you are blessed. Do not fear their threats. Do not be frightened. But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander.
Again, it tells us, don't forget the gentleness, the character that a Christian should have. And he tells us don't be afraid. And I mentioned, I want to give you an example, a great example. Stephen, when he was being stoned to death, he was not scared, because he had two options. He could have worry or worship. And that's the option for us. We could worry, we could be afraid, or we could worship God, just like Stephen did. He looked up to heaven, the Bible says, when he was being stoned to death. Number three, the third thing that we need to do is don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of your faith. And I am telling you this from somebody that, God has changed his life dramatically. I was lost. I was severely depressed. I was suicidal. And Jesus entered my life and turned that upside down. A disabled man, a sinner, is standing in front of you, church, talking to you not because what I know or what I've done, it's just because Jesus transforms. Let me tell you this. Never let anybody laugh you out of following Jesus. Never. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 16 says,
However, if you suffer as a Christian, do not be ashamed, but praise God that you bear that name.
It is so amazing. It's so powerful, the name of Jesus that we bear everywhere with us. We have to realize that. I want you to write this down if you have a pen. I don't need others' people's approval to be happy. A lot of us in our life looking for people's approval for our happiness. No, we don't need it. We need God. We have a powerful God. We have the King of Kings, that we bearing this amazing name that has transformed our lives. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 17 says,
For it is better, if it is God's will, to suffer for doing good than for doing evil.
I say it again. No matter what you do, somebody's not going to like you. So the Bible says it's better to suffer for what is right, for what is of a God than other. And now that takes us to number 4, the fourth thing that we need to do. That is very important. And that is recognize the source, which is Satan. The source of the pressure that you're going through is not your classmate, is not your colleague, is not your government, but is Satan. I'm telling you this from hearing it firsthand from my close brothers and sisters, my leaders who suffer on a daily basis. You will see in the documentary, if you stay for lunch, that these brothers were tortured, but they pray for their torturers. They pray for their prison guards and often turn their life around by doing that. They have every reason to be resentful, to not love. But they told me often, it's like, Brother Ahmad, is not this torturer that is doing this. There is a source behind it that is making him to do this. And they are recognizing this source. And that's how the church is growing in a persecuted, in an underground setting. Because they're not blaming people directly. They know what is behind this. Let me tell you this. Many of you have children. I have 2 children. And Satan knows really well he cannot hurt God in any shape or form, in any way. But what he does, he hurts God's children to hurt God. I'm sure you experience this. The quickest way to hurt a parent is to hurt their children. If somebody hurts my kids, I don't understand reasoning, even if my child have done something. But somebody hurts my kids, I'm hurt, I'm upset. And that's what is Satan doing. He's hurting me and you, using others to do that, to directly hurt God. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 says,
For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms.
So when you suffer pressure, opposition, don't fight back. Stay away from arguments. They're not going to get you anywhere. And trust me, God does not want you to argue with anybody. You know, the Bible tells us Jesus stayed away from heated arguments. He didn't argue with people. He didn't try to defend God. Let's read Jesus' response to opposition directly from the Bible.
When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly.
That's exactly what we need to do. When we face opposition, we have to entrust ourselves fully to him. This is a model for us, how he did it, and we can do it. And you know, you're not alone. It's hard, but when that happens, you ask the Holy Spirit to help you at that time. That's how you entrust yourself in God. So that leads us to our number 5, the 5th thing that the Bible says to do when we're opposed. And that is, do not retaliate. Don't retaliate, especially if you have the power to retaliate. Because then that would make us any different than non-believers. We can, but we don't. When that happens, instead of retaliating, remember Matthew 5, verses 10 to 12. When that is happening, Matthew 12 says, be glad and rejoice. Romans chapter 12, verse 17 and 18 says,
Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone.
Is that clear enough? You know, when people throw at you, arrows at you, don't try to even defend yourself. Let God defend you. And you know what happened when you do that? God will smile. He's like, yes, that's my child. And that takes us to our last point, the sixth thing that we need to do when we suffer from opposition and pressure. But this one is the most important of all of these things that we read. And it's the most special one because nobody, note this, nobody does this or could do this except born-again Christians. You could probably find one of these things that we talked about in some religion around the world. They could tell you, oh yeah, you know, our teaching is that. But this one is specifically for Christians. And that is respond with the blessing. That is real hard. It's really tough. It's the hardest one. When people ridicule you and pressure you and malign you, not just, you know, the Bible doesn't teach us to just be quiet and not say anything, not retaliate, all of this. It's like respond with the blessing. Romans chapter 12, verse 21 says,
Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
That's how you defeat Satan. We don't use its own prescription to overcome him. We can't do that. But we overcome evil with good. And most importantly, you know, there's a really, really tough verse. It's found in Luke chapter 6. And we all know that by love your enemies verse. To be honest with you, I don't like that verse. I just don't like it. And if I was ever given an option to take a verse, a part out of the Bible, this would be the first one. But unfortunately, I don't get to do that. Let's read that together. Ruth chapter 6, verses 27 to 30. Please go slowly. I want to comment on them one by one.
But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies.
Okay.
Do good to those who hate you.
Really?
Bless those who curse you.
Oh, no.
Pray for those who mistreat you.
Oh, my.
If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also.
You're killing me now, God.
If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them.
Oh, come on, God.
Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back.
That's rough. But we got to do it. But the good news is we're not alone. God is not telling us to achieve all these things and leave you alone. We have the Holy Spirit to assist us with this. Jesus did it. Our persecuted brothers and sisters are doing it. In a documentary, one of my brothers is sharing that when they were whipping him and blood was dripping from his back, he got, you know, an eye contact with his torturer, and he said, I just found an opportunity. I told him, God bless you. Isn't that powerful? So if you begin to remember those three principles, three promises, and begin to do these 6 principles, There are a few things that I guarantee you will happen. First, God will smile. God says, yes, this is my son, this is my daughter. Number two, you will be blessed, according to Matthew 5, the biggest blessing that anybody could ever wish for. You just guaranteed that for yourself. Number three, your public opposers will become your private seekers. And we have live examples, like Nicodemus in the Bible. He was Jesus' public opposer, but only during the daytime. At nighttime, he came to Jesus and said, well, tell me about this born-again thing. Give you another example. Paul, the worst persecutor of the church, the biggest public opposer of the church, who met Jesus in private and became the founding father of mission around the world. I want to leave you with one question to examine yourself with. You don't have to say that to anybody, but this is just for you personally. If, hypothetically, they made Christianity illegal in Canada, there's a law that passed and Christianity is illegal, is there enough evidence to convict you? Will you be convicted as a Christian? As you're examining yourself, remember when people opposed your faith, did you say something or you just went quiet? I want to ask you, at what cost would you stay faithful to Christ? From the people I work with is a pistol to their head. Fear of being tortured, arrested, tortured, jailed, or killed. But if the price that we're currently paying in Canada is pressure, then why are we so worried about opposition? And I want to read these two verses to you, and I want you to note of them. At first, Mark chapter 8, verse 38 says,
If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels.
Matthew 10:32 says,
Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven.
let's all be encouraged today and go forward towards acknowledging Jesus in every aspect of our life, 24/7. And again, I'm so thankful that I could speak to you today. I'm bringing you greeting from a lot of persecuted believers. They always ask me, do the church in Canada knows about us? And, especially every time I visit a church like this, I could tell them, yes, they know. And they pray for you. So please pray for us as we serving these brothers and sisters. And if you have time, I highly encourage you to join us for lunch and watching the documentary. Very special, raw footage from our brothers and sisters. Very informative about the work that is happening and how this revival, is shaping. You could just see that for yourself. So I'm just gonna pray for all of us. Thank you, Father, for this country, for this blessing that we have today, Lord, to loudly and freely worship you. We know so many people in the world don't have this privilege often we forget this freedom that we have to come and worship you freely. So Lord, I pray that you help us to remember that and not take it for granted. Also, Lord, I pray that you would help us to remember all these principles, all the things that you told us about living our life and living in you. So Father, I pray a special blessing over each person here today, each person that is hearing us, and I pray that you would encourage our heart and help us to all the time, every day, everywhere, bear your